It's funny, isn't it? How the things you build your life around can crumble in a single, devastating moment? For me, it was running. Not just the act itself, the rhythmic pounding of feet on pavement, the burn in the lungs, the endorphin rush, but everything it represented. My identity, my purpose, my marriage. My name is Marcus. I'm 39 now, but for years, I was Marcus, the fitness instructor. Marcus, the avid runner. Marcus, the guy who found his greatest joy in pushing physical limits, in the shared journey of sweat and dedication. Denver, Colorado, was my canvas. The crisp mountain air, the trails that wound up into the foothills, the sun-drenched mornings. It was a perfect life, or so I thought. Jessica was central to that life. My wife. She wasn't a natural runner, not like me, but she embraced the lifestyle, the healthy eating, the early mornings, the discipline. We met at a charity 10K, a shared love for movement drawing us together. She had this bright, infectious laugh, a sparkle in her eyes that made me feel like anything was possible. Our vows weren't just about sickness and health. They felt more like training in life, a pact to pursue our best selves, side by side. We built a home, a business, a shared routine that felt like an unbreakable rhythm. Running wasn't just a hobby. It was our love language, our shared vision for a vibrant, healthy future. We talk about setting new personal bests, about crossing finish lines together, about growing old with strong, capable bodies. It was simple, pure, and utterly foundational. Then there was Frank. He entered our lives a few years after Jessica and I got married. He was a client at my gym, an engineer with a dry wit and a surprisingly strong stride. We clicked instantly, kindred spirits in the world of mile splits and recovery shakes. He became more than a client. He was my best friend, my running buddy, the third leg of our informal training tripod. We'd log miles together, dissecting routes, trading tips, pushing each other. The three of us, Frank, Jessica, and I, decided to tackle the Colorado Springs Marathon. It was a big one, a real challenge, and the thought of training for it, of achieving that goal together, filled me with an almost childlike excitement. It wasn't just a race. It was another shared adventure, a testament to our bond. Looking back, the signs were there, faint whispers at first, easily dismissed. Things that now feel like blaring sirens. Jessica and Frank started spending more time together, just the two of them. Extra training runs, they'd call them. Just getting in some speed work you're too fast for, Mars. Frank would joke, his eyes twinkling, and Jessica would laugh, a little too loud, a little too long. Or, oh, you had that client meeting, babe, so Frank and I just went out for an easy 5. Their schedules just seemed to align perfectly, often when mine decidedly didn't. I remember the first time I felt a true pang of unease. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. More like a sharp, inexplicable exclusion. We were at dinner, the three of us, and they were talking about a hill repeat session, laughing about some shared stumble, an inside joke that zipped between them, leaving me on the outside, a spectator to their private amusement. I tried to join in, but the thread felt lost. Jessica caught my eye, a quick, almost nervous glance, and then turned back to Frank, picking up their conversation. I felt a chill, a sudden drop in temperature in the warm restaurant. But I pushed it down, told myself I was being silly. It was marathon training, for God's sake. People bonded over that kind of intense shared experience. It was healthy. It was good, right? The extra runs became more frequent. Jessica started setting her alarm earlier, sometimes before I was even awake, slipping out of the house with a whispered, "Just getting a head start, love." Frank would text her directly, confirming their meetup, rather than sending a group message. There were little things, a new running vest Jessica had that Frank seemed to instantly recognize as being perfect for those long runs, a subtle change in their post-run stretching routine that mimicked each other's movements. I started to feel off, physically, mentally. My own runs felt heavier, less joyous. I'd find myself staring blankly at my protein shake, a sense of aimless dread bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. I'd ask Jessica about their runs, trying to sound casual, but she'd give vague answers, or deflect with a question about my day. Oh, it was fine. Just miles. How was your spin class? Frank, too, became evasive, his usual directness replaced by a kind of slippery charm, a quick change of subject. It was as if a subtle wall was being built, brick by brick, around me. My sleep suffered. I'd wake in the dead of night, heart pounding, a cold sweat dampening my sheets, unsure why. I'd watch Jessica sleeping beside me, her face peaceful in the moonlight, and feel a sudden, jarring disconnect. Who was this person? What was happening? One evening, after another skipped group run because Jessica and Frank had already knocked out their long one, I suggested joining them next time. It's been a while since we all ran together, I said, trying to keep my voice light, casual. Jessica looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Oh, Mars, she said, her voice a little strained. You're so much faster than us on those long runs. We're just trying to get some consistent pacing in without you having to slow down. You need to focus on your race. Frank, who was sitting across from us, nodded, a little too enthusiastically. Yeah, man. Don't worry about us. You just crush it. Crush it. The words felt hollow, like a bad joke. My stomach clenched. It was a dismissal, thinly veiled as concern for my performance. They were making me feel like the problem, like my desire for shared camaraderie was an inconvenience. My mind, which usually moved with the clear, focused precision of a well-trained athlete, felt foggy, disoriented. Was I being clingy? Was I letting my competitive nature get the better of me? They were right, I told myself. It was about my race. But a tiny, insistent voice in my head whispered, no, it's about something else. That's when the idea formed, a cold, hard knot in my gut. The shared online training log. We'd set it up weeks ago, a Google sheet, simple and functional, where we'd all input our runs, distance, time, pace, notes. It was meant to foster accountability and motivation, a symbol of our transparency. I opened the sheet late that night, the screen glow illuminating my face in the dark living room. My fingers trembled slightly as I scrolled through the entries. Frank's, Jessica's, mine. At first, it looked normal. Mileage, pace, comments like felt strong, or hill repeats sucked. But then I started noticing small anomalies. Jessica's pace notes, usually straightforward, easy 8 miles, 9:00/mile. Sometimes included strange sequences. Target 6.15/mile, follow-up 7:30, or mile 3.5 marker, check 2.14, new start point. Frank's notes had similar, oddly specific numerical patterns. It didn't make sense as running data. The numbers were too precise, too disjointed from actual pace or distance. They were like a pattern trying to hide itself in plain sight. My mind raced, pulling at threads. I tried cross-referencing their extra runs. Jessica would log 10 miles, 8:45 pace, notes, 6.15/7.30/2.14. Frank, on the same day, would log 10 miles, 8:40 pace, notes, follow-up mile 3, new point 5:30. A terrible thought started to crystallize. Encrypted messages. It sounded insane, paranoid, like something out of a spy novel. But the pieces fit too perfectly. I started experimenting, treating the numbers like a simple code. I remembered Frank's old engineering jokes about using hex codes for mundane messages. But this wasn't hex. It was simpler, almost childish in its simplicity, yet effective in its obscurity. Dates and times. Location markers. I found a pattern in Jessica's notes for a run they'd taken a month ago. Pace 5.30, mile marker 7, same spot. And Frank's corresponding entry. Hit 3 o'clock, then 5:30. Good run. 5:30, mile marker 7. It hit me then. Not a running pace. 5:30 a.m. Mile marker 7 on our usual long run trail. But what about the same spot? And Frank's 3 o'clock and 5:30? I kept digging. I started looking for recurring numbers, sequences. Then I saw it. A series of messages in their notes, spread across several weeks. Jessica, target 6.15, follow-up 7.30. Room 214-inch Frank. Confirmed 6:15 p.m., wait in lobby. New plans tomorrow, 5.30. See you. It was a cold, clinical unveiling of pure, unadulterated betrayal. Room 214. Not a mile marker. A hotel room. 6:15 p.m. Not a pace. A time. My hands started shaking uncontrollably. The screen blurred. My breath caught in my throat. I felt like I'd been sucker punched, winded, unable to take in air. The numbers, the innocuous little notes, were laid bare. Their rendezvous, detailed in stark, horrifying clarity. Dates, times, even places. And then, the kicker. The message that shattered my world into irreparable fragments. Jessica, so excited for the move. Denver feels small now. After the marathon, we can tell him. New life. New city. For point 26, Frank agreed. For point 26 is the day. Freedom. Our life. We deserve this. For point 26, April 26th. The day of the marathon. My marathon. Our marathon. The race we had all been training for together. It wasn't just about their affair. It was about their plan to abandon me, to start a new life together, using the marathon as their finishing line, the moment they'd finally cut me loose. It was orchestrated, cold, calculated. A betrayal so deep it felt like a physical violation. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. My vision tunneled. The images flashed. Jessica's forced smiles, Frank's evasive eyes, their shared laughter, the way they'd look at each other, now revealed not as camaraderie, but as a secret language of illicit desire. Every single extra run, every conflicting schedule, every dismissive comment about my competitive nature, it was all a lie. A meticulously constructed edifice of deceit. I spent the next few days in a fog. I went through the motions, teaching my classes, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. But inside, I was a hollowed-out shell. Every interaction with Jessica was an exercise in agonizing self-control. Her touch felt like a burning lie. Her voice, once a melody, now grated on my nerves, each word tainted by the revelation of her treachery. Frank's texts, asking about my training, felt like mockery. I saw them together, once, at the gym, laughing, touching each other's arms. I felt a primal scream rising in my throat, but I swallowed it down. Not yet. Not like this. I printed out the training log. Every single incriminating entry. A stack of paper, tangible proof of an intangible wound. I folded it carefully, tucking it into my race bag. The marathon was in 2 days. The weight of it in my bag felt heavier than any gear. The morning of the marathon dawned crisp and clear. The air was electric, thick with anticipation and nervous energy. Thousands of runners gathered, stretching, chatting, eyes bright with hope and determination. It was exactly the kind of atmosphere I used to thrive on. Now, it felt like a grotesque parody. My stomach churned, a knot of dread and icy resolve. I found Jessica and Frank near the starting corrals, laughing, doing their pre-race stretches. They looked like the picture of health and happiness, a perfect couple, two friends ready to conquer a shared goal. My blood ran cold, then hot. The rage, cold and precise, was now a roaring fire. "Hey, Mars," Frank called out, a wide grin on his face. "Ready to crush it?" Jessica turned, her smile wide and bright. "Morning, babe. You look focused." "Focused?" Oh, I was focused. I walked up to them, my race bib flapping against my chest. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs. I pulled the printout from my bag. Their smiles faltered, confusion clouding their faces. "What's this?" Jessica asked, her voice tight, a hint of unease creeping in. I unfolded the pages, holding them out for them to see. My hand didn't shake. It was perfectly steady. My voice, however, was raw, tight, barely a whisper that cut through the cheerful cacophony of the starting line. "This," I said, my gaze fixed on Jessica, then flicking to Frank, "is our training log. Or, rather, your training log. The one where you planned to leave me. After the marathon." Their faces drained of color. Jessica's jaw went slack. Frank's eyes widened, a deer caught in headlights. The air around us seemed to thicken, the ambient noise of the crowd suddenly muted, distant. "What are you talking about, Marcus?" Jessica stammered, a desperate, pathetic attempt at denial. I pointed to the lines, the coded messages. Room 214, 6:15 p.m. New life, new city. For point 26, you thought I wouldn't see it? You thought I was that stupid. My voice was rising now, trembling with a fury I hadn't known I possessed. All those extra runs. All the lies. The manipulation. You made me feel like I was the problem, for wanting to run with my own wife, my own friend. A few people nearby had started to turn, their conversations dying down. Their curious gazes bore into us. "Marcus, please," Jessica pleaded, her voice barely audible, a desperate hand reaching out. I recoiled as if burned. "Don't you dare touch me," I hissed. "You planned to gut me on the finish line of a race we trained for together. You poisoned everything." I reached into my bag and pulled out my running shoes. My well-worn, perfectly broken-in racing flats, the ones I had logged hundreds of miles in, the ones that were supposed to carry me across this finish line. They felt heavy, inert, suddenly meaningless. I threw them at their feet. They landed with dull thuds on the asphalt. "I won't run this race," I declared, my voice echoing with a terrible finality. "Not with partners who cheated me in life. You want your new life? You can have it, but you won't do it over my corpse." Jessica gasped, a strangled sound. Frank stood frozen, his face a mask of shame and utter defeat. Their carefully constructed facade had shattered, revealing the ugly truth beneath. The crowd around us had gone completely silent, a wide circle forming, their bewildered eyes scanning our faces, sensing the raw, devastating drama unfolding before them. The humiliation was absolute, for all of us, but for them, it was a public reckoning. For me, it was a release. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't care about the roar of the starting gun that sounded seconds later, signaling the start of the race I had trained a year for. My race was over. My old life was over. The days that followed were a blur of numb grief and gut-wrenching pain. The house, once our shared sanctuary, felt like a tomb. Every object, every photograph, every memory was tainted. The physical exertion of training had always been my escape, my way to process emotion. But now, the thought of running filled me with revulsion. My body felt heavy, sluggish, a stranger to itself. I locked myself away, the world outside a distant hum. I didn't answer calls, didn't check social media. I stared at walls, at the ceiling, trying to piece together how I could have been so blind, so trusting. The anger came in waves, hot and sickening, followed by crushing despair. The betrayal wasn't just sexual. It was a fundamental shattering of my reality, of who I thought I was, of what I believed in. Then, slowly, a different feeling began to surface. A flicker of something hard and cold, like flint. The desire not to simply survive, but to burn away the old, toxic layers. I couldn't stay in Denver, not anymore. Every trail, every street, every corner held a memory, a ghost of the life I'd lost. I sold my business. It was heartbreaking, severing ties with the community I'd built, the clients I genuinely cared for. But it felt necessary, a surgical removal of a poison limb. I packed what little I truly needed, said goodbye to what remained of my old life, and drove east, not knowing where I was going, only knowing I needed to run far, far away. The Appalachian Mountains called to me, a wild, untamed wilderness, a stark contrast to the manicured trails of Denver. I bought a serious backpack, a tent, a map, and started hiking. I ran the trails, not for pace, not for distance, but for clarity, for the sheer, punishing effort of it. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed, until exhaustion silenced the incessant chatter of betrayal in my mind. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I bathed in icy streams, slept under a canopy of stars, cooked over open fires. The mountains stripped me bare, physically and emotionally. There were days when the grief was a physical weight, pinning me to the earth. I'd cry until there were no tears left, my body racked with sobs, letting the raw, unfiltered pain wash over me. But then there were moments, moments of breathtaking beauty. A sunrise painting the peaks in hues of gold and crimson. The call of an owl in the deep twilight. The simple satisfaction of a hard climb. The summit view a reward for perseverance. In the vast, indifferent expanse of nature, my individual heartbreak felt both immense and utterly insignificant. It taught me humility. It taught me resilience. I found a new kind of strength out there, not the outward strength of a perfectly trained body, but an inner fortitude, a quiet resolve forged in solitude and self-reliance. I realized that my definition of strength had been too narrow, too focused on the physical. True strength, I learned, was the ability to stand up after being knocked down, to rebuild from the ashes, to find beauty in the brokenness. Running, once a shared passion, became a solitary ritual of healing. Each mile was a step away from the past, a step towards a new me. I wasn't running from them anymore. I was running towards myself. Eventually, I stopped running the full length of the trail and started guiding others. Small groups, individuals looking for their own challenges, their own moments of clarity. I became a wilderness guide. It's a different kind of fitness instruction, a deeper one. I teach people how to read a map, how to set up camp, how to find water, yes. But more than that, I help them connect with themselves, with the raw, honest beauty of the wild. I talk about integrity now, about the importance of being true to yourself, even when it's hard. I don't share the full story of my past with everyone, but there's a quiet understanding in my eyes, a depth of experience that people seem to pick up on. I value honesty above all else, in myself and in others. Life is different now. It's quieter, simpler. I live in a small cabin, surrounded by trees, the sound of a creek, my constant companion. I still run, every day, but it's not a race against anyone else, or even against my old self. It's a communion with the earth, a moving meditation. The pain of that day, the betrayal, it's still there, a scar tissue around my heart. It's a reminder of what I lost, yes, but also of what I survived. It no longer defines me, but it shaped me. It taught me invaluable lessons about trust, about self-worth, about the deceptive nature of appearances. I am Marcus, the wilderness guide. I am strong, not just in body, but in spirit. I am whole, not despite what happened, but because of it. And as I guide people through these mountains, helping them find their own way, I know, deep in my bones, that I finally found mine.